Hello, wonderful people. This is the Mendo Money Mindset Show. I'm your humble host, Raymond Habel, full time resident of Mendocino County, born and raised, a very proud father of a wonderful baby boy. Just turned 5 last month. Can't believe it. Full time resident for the past 6 years. Excuse me, full time resident. A full time licensed realtor in Mendocino County. And a self improvement enthusiast. If you've never heard the show, this is going to be a very exciting show. I took last month off, enjoyed it with family, so I hope you did the same. This show, we're going to be talking about, if you've never heard us before, 3 areas, 3 things that I hope can give you awareness and make you think, but also can give you enough information for informed decisions. When I sit down with my clients, I say, I just said this yesterday, I had a 45-minute conversation with a family that is selling their home on the coast. Now, it was a beautiful home, but unfortunately, over the years, no one lived in it. It is in disrepair. And they said, well, we have some offers from neighbors, but we'd really like to use you. And I said, hey, I am here to give you the most accurate information I can. I don't know a lot of things. And I only know a few things really well. And real estate happens to be one of them. My job is to give you the information so you can make an informed decision. That's why I'm here. And this is what I'm trying to do with this radio show. If you've never heard the show before, it is split up into 3 sections. We talk about the Mendocino County real estate market, talk about data, stats, trends. I tell you my personal opinion on what I am seeing behind the scenes. And then we talk about personal finances. How do we increase our income? How do we pay off our debt? How do we make good decisions? How do we track and know what's going on with our expenses? This show, we're going to be talking about how to pay off debt that was acquired during the holidays. The holiday hangover, so to say, in finances, we're going to attack that. We're going to give you models, tactics, tips to pay those down. And then finally, given that it is February and Valentine's Day is around the corner, we're going to talk about relationships. A wonderful podcast I heard is called The One Extraordinary Marriage. I think Tony and Lisa, if I remember. And they talk about the 6 pillars of intimacy. We're going to go through each of those 6, give a little bio on what those are, so you can be aware of some of the ingredients that might make up a good relationship. I hope you're excited. I know I'm excited. Feels good to get back into the chair. It's also early morning for me, so I've had my coffee. How many out there are early risers? Email me at mendomoneymindset@gmail.com. Tell me about your morning routine. For me, I enjoy my cup of coffee. I try to drink as much water as I can before I have coffee. Rehydrate the body. I've also been putting some creatine in my water. I enjoy it. It tastes like nothing, but supposedly it's a slight nootropic. Obviously, don't listen to me on your health. But I personally do that in the mornings and trying to, on my muscle gaining journey, gain some more muscle. I've gained weight. Maybe not necessarily muscle, but hey, we're getting there. Anyways, I digress, but email me your morning routine at mendomoneymindset@gmail.com. The first portion of the show will be talking about real estate. I hope you've had your coffee. If you're in the car, hopefully you're driving to your work or back from it. But I want to start with a quote. I've been reading a book over 700 pages about the wonderful gentleman we all know, like and love, called Abraham Lincoln. And the book is called Team of Rivals, and it talks about his professional career and the political nuance on how he navigated his career as a politician, eventually as a president. What stands out to me is he was known for getting the best people in the chairs in his cabinet specifically whether or not they were rivals. A number of them were actually his runner-ups, his rivals going into the election. He wins, and then he goes back to them after they've said mean things to him. And he says, hey, I know you're the best guy for the job. I want you to come work with me. He was great at this. So he has a quote I want to share with you, and it goes like this. I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed, but I am bound to live by the light that I have. I must stand with anybody that stands right, and stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. That, to me, was Abraham Lincoln in a nutshell. Getting into it, we're going to be going over the Mendocino County Market Real Estate Update. We're going over January's data, 2026, and we see a couple of interesting things. If you've heard the show, you know we like to begin with active inventory. Currently, as of the time of this recording, there were 299 homes on the market, which is a 7.2% increase same time last year. Pending homes, which are escrows, actually had a 40.5% increase from same time last year. Also reviewing the data from December, we could tell that there was, I believe, a 80% jump in escrows. And so we'll get more into that, but that's a very interesting statistic. Sold homes, 33 homes sold for the month of January, which is a 5.7% decrease year over year. We go into the price per square foot. This is a great way with me not seeing your home, not knowing any information about you. I can tell you how the market is doing when it comes to numbers, dollars, and this is a very good litmus test for that. Sold price per square foot, all the square feet that sold divided by all the dollars that sold, it gives us a great marker. Average price per square foot is up 4% from December, month over month, but I was going to say a negative 5, a 5% decrease same time last year. Average days on market for Mendocino County hit a high of 152 days for the month of January, which is a 26% increase year over year. Average active prices are up 23% year over year. Optimistic sellers, months of inventory is up to 9.1 months of inventory, and a 13% increase year over year. Now, if you don't know what months of inventory is, I explain on every show because I frankly really love it. Months of inventory is a really cool indicator because it takes two things into account. Now, here's the example. You have 100 homes on the market. We cannot bring on any more homes. That's it. We've closed the MLS. No more homes can be sold. How many months would it take to sell those homes? That is a metaphorical example of what months of inventory is. And so we have months of inventory being two equations. How many homes are currently on the market? And how quickly are they selling? Now we do have a little bit more inventory than we did last year. We've had sort of a higher inventory ever since interest rates. However, what's really bringing that number up, 13.8% year over year, is the 150 days that they're staying on the market. They're staying on the market longer. Current rates, when we did pull these up, were between mid-5s and low 6s. Now, when I see this, and this is the portion on which I sort of look at this as a whole and say, what am I seeing? So what am I seeing behind the scenes? I am seeing a lot of buyer confidence. I'm seeing post-holidays, buyers are coming out. Good weather has people interested in mowing their lawns, getting the projects done on the exterior of their homes, thinking about selling. Now, for buyers, we just had one close the other day. They're coming out and purchasing because they've been looking for a while. They've looked through the holidays, they took a pause to be with their families, and now they're coming back out. The pending escrows is a representation of what I am seeing behind the scenes. We have more escrows going on than we did last year. Now, here's the question. Is this a blip in the market, a blip in the radar? Or is this a continued theme of increased buyer confidence as interest rates trickle down, that more buyers are getting in the game? Listen to next month's show, and let's see if this is a trend. For sellers, I am working with a number of clients that are wanting updated home evaluations for the new year 2026. A number of these clients that said they were selling in the spring are now starting to look at the market and get curious. So if I was a seller right now, I'd be looking at exactly what's in my neighborhood. I'd be talking with a competent realtor. I'd be asking, what is the value of my home? And then I would have a professional, hopefully a good realtor that's worth their salt, and a lot of them are, walk through the home with you and tell you exactly what you would need to do, any repairs to the home, what sort of marketing campaigns they would suggest before you get on the market. If you're trying to get on in March, we have a month. If you're trying to get on in April, you have 2 months. If you know anything about real estate, it takes a long time to do anything. Get those things looked at now. If you're a buyer, my number one recommendation right now is to look at these listings that have been on the market for almost 6 months and make offers that make sense for you. I had a phone call conversation. We sold some acreage up in Laytonville, and a gentleman calls me out of the blue. First question, doesn't even say hello. He says, "Did that property really sell for that much?" And I said, "Yes, it did." He's like, "Well, shoot, if I would have known that property would have sold for that much, I would have bought it." And I said, "Hey, if that's the case, you should have made an offer, because the worst thing a seller can say is no." Great testament to that methodology. Also, if you are in the buying market, if you're looking at buying a home, be really good friends with your insurance agent. Get to know them really well. Before you start putting offers in, pull up insurance quotes. With insurance nowadays, the California Unfair Plan, it is important to know how much your premiums are going to be, ideally before or as you're making the offer. The worst thing you can do is fall in love with a home, get pre-qualified, everything's lined up, make a great offer, the seller accepts, you guys are in escrow, and then day 14, figure out the premiums and say, "Oh my gosh, honey, we can't afford that." Try to do that. That's what I'm seeing right now in today's market. What did you think? Do you think this market's going to be going up for 2026? Do you think we're going sideways? Or do you think there's impending doom on the horizon? Email me your thoughts about the real estate market at mendomoneymindset@gmail.com. I am curious what you think. Also, if you would like a free report, this is all the pictures, all the stats that I'm reading to you today, go ahead and email me at that same email. I'm more than happy to have someone from our team send over a copy. Next today on today's list is, if I go back up here, a 7-step guide to recover from the holiday debt. This website that I'll be pulling from article is from theconsumercredit.com, and it says how to recover from holiday debt without panicking. I love that. Very timely. As we go through these steps, I'm going to talk with you. I've read the article. I do like some things more than others. I'm going to give you my opinion about them. But again, if you would like to read this with me, you can simply type in 7-Step Guide to Recover from Holiday Debt, and you will be able to see this as well. Number 1, to fix a problem, we must know that there is a problem. And it might not be a problem. It might just be a situation. It might just be aligning your goals with your current reality of where you're at. So number 1, it says assess the damage. First, we have to go through and look and see what exactly is going on. If you have a smartphone nowadays, great time to open up your app. If you have credit cards, good to see what the balance is. I just did that the other day and I said, oof, mine's a little bit higher than I thought. I'm not sure if you're anything like me, but I have a mental tally in my head. Oh, okay, we're approximately this, for the month. I'll take a look at it. Last month I looked at it and I was like, okay, a little bit higher than what I thought. Let me move some resources over. I just bought a vehicle, and so that is always expensive, especially the small details, light bulbs, things like that. So assess the damage. What does your emergency fund, if you have one of those, look like? You can look at your retirement accounts. How did your retirement accounts fare over the holiday season? What does your debt look like? Number 2, it says create a realistic budget. Now, I've talked many times on this show about how to make budgets, ideas for making budgets, flavors that fit your needs the best for making budgets. Ultimately, you want to have a data set that you can use for predictive patterns in the future. What I mean by that, get a couple of months, ideally a year, so you can see the seasons of your financial information, get bank balances, get your mortgage payments, whatever that might be. Get a list of the expenses that you usually pay on a monthly basis. What's the fun budget? What's the eating out look like? What's your gas station bill? Get all of that, enough so you can at least see what you typically spend every month. And then from there, you're going to predict. You're going to create a baseline 2 categories. One is, what's the reoccurring usual living expenses? What's my overhead for living? Food, house, car, basic necessities. And the second is, what are the fluctuating items, right? What are the things that go up and down? My fast food, entertainment, what does that look like? That's a real simple way. Have a couple of numbers in your head to know what you're spending every single month. Number 3, it says prioritize debt repayment. Now, you and I can talk until we're blue in the face about how we can pay off our debt. The easiest way I've found that works for me is treating your debt like another bill. So let's say we have credit card payments, right? Let's say consumer debt is the biggest thing besides cars and a mortgage that we have that we want to pay off this year. I like to view it as the minimum payment you will always make. That is a bill, that minimum payment. Okay, we understand that. I like to have another bill every single month, every single 2 weeks, however you do it, however you get paid, that is a bill. In my head, it is an invoice. But what I'm really doing is I'm just transferring money over and paying off that debt a little bit more aggressively. For the longest time, I had a $200 bill that would go from my savings into my credit card up and above my minimum payments. And the balance wasn't that big anyway, so it felt like a big deal. That's how I would recommend, if you were anywhere in my shoes when I was on my debt journey, to paying off your debt. This here, it says you can do the debt avalanche or you can do the debt snowball, depending on which camp you're in. If you've ever heard of Dave Ramsey, he likes the snowball method. It's just 2 approaches, right? Let's say we have a couple of credit cards. The avalanche is paying off the highest interest debts first. So if you have 3 credit cards, one's 15, 18, the other one's 11%, you're going to pick the middle. You're going to pay off that 18% credit card first. Start doing that $200 a month on top of your minimum payments, whatever you can afford. The snowball method, a little bit more human psychology based, is choosing the smallest balance and taking that off. And that's designed for those quick wins. Pay off debt number 1 first. Do a check mark. High five the spouse. And then pay off the second debt. Go on to this third debt. Then pay off everything else. Number 4, it says, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to have extra money every single month? We're going to cut back non-essential items. We're going to eat out less. We're going to cut back on entertainment. We're going to be canceling any unused subscriptions. And we're going to be delaying non-essential purchases. This new car that I purchased, it is a fashionable, very fast 2006 Honda CR-V. And if you know anything about the car, it's not fast. It's a 4-cylinder, new to me. But one of the things I wanted is those overhead cargo containers to put extra stuff. It kind of gave it more of an Outback Overlander look to it. But that is a want, not a need. The way I like to think about purchases in my head is it a want or a need? That is not a need. I do not need that. That's a want. So if I am aggressively paying off debt to recover from the holidays, I'm going to be doing that and probably delaying that cargo purchase. Number 5, it says seek additional income opportunities. So we've addressed the levers in life, right? We have our expense lever and then we have our income lever. The expenses we've already addressed. Get a budget, see our expenses, understand what we're doing, cut back on unnecessary items, delay big purchases that might be wants versus needs. Now, how do we start playing with this income lever? Now, we've talked in the past about creating additional income. We've talked about side hustles. We've talked about talked about pay raises. How do you go up to your employer, do pay raises? We've talked about doing nanny jobs, all these things. I encourage you to listen to past radio shows. But to quickly go over a couple, if you have additional time, and no one does, if you make it a priority to earn additional income, and you have the flexibility to do so, take up a part-time job. Now, what does that mean? That means anything. I would suggest starting with, do you have a skill that's valuable in the marketplace? Right? Do you have a driver's license? Okay, that's actually a skill that is valuable to the marketplace. You can do the Uber Eats. You can do the, was it DoorDash? And then there is the taxi, Uber. You can do Uber. Things of that nature. That is an employable skill. Do you have tech skills? Can you do tech support? I know I go on the freelancing website Fiverr, and oh my goodness, for a very good price, you can get a lot of stuff done. If you've ever actually purchased things off of there, can you then become a contributor? Do you have a really good DJ voice? Hello, everybody. Could you be a voice actor? Could you do audiobooks? All of these things, all of these ideas. I would suggest, if you have a smartphone, if you know anything about technology, you can pop open your preferred AI, ChatGPT, Claude. You can simply have a conversation. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. From this situation, I want you to analyze my skills valuable in the marketplace and suggest a number of side hustles or ideas for income that I can do to help pay off my debt. Here's more about me. Great prompt for you to use. Number 6, let's set financial goals for the year. Now, this is a frame that I like to think of. So we like yearly goals, but quarterly sprints. Someone calls them quarterly quests. The reason I like quarterly is because it's a little more tactical. What I used to do in the past for yearly goals is I would only have yearly goals, and then there would be no pressure between January and October, because I would say, oh, well, tomorrow I'll do that. Right? My tomorrow self will suddenly have the skills, ability, and resources to handle this thing. But for me today, no worries. And then I would wake up October and I would say, oh no, what did I do? So quarterly goals for me works a bit easier. It's long enough I can set big goals and achieve them. How do we eat the whale? One bite at a time. But it's not too long where I don't have the sense of urgency. So set your goals for the year. My advice, set a big yearly goal so you know where to steer the ship. Break that down. Assume you're also not going to be doing this goal for the entire year. A really cool hack that I've used is I have 10-month years. When I do planning for my goals, whether it's for the business, whether it's financial, whether it's personal growth, I have 10-month years. And the reason is I'm assuming I'm going to be a flawed human being. I'm assuming I'm not going to follow my own advice 100% of the time. I'm assuming I'm going to have holidays. I'm going to have days off. There are things that are going to go wrong that I won't know how to account for. So why don't we put in the human factor? Why don't we re-establish that? And so I have 10-month years. If I'm going to save $100,000 this year, I'm going to 10-month year, that's 10 grand a month. And guess what? There are going to be some months I don't do that. And that's okay because I've built in the human factor. So set your SMART goals. What's your yearly goal? What is your quarterly goal? For this, it says implement the SMART method. We've talked about that in past shows. The SMART method is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Timely, is it a realistic timeline? You think you can get it done? I like to do that 20%. So I set a goal that I think I can do, and I make it 20% more aggressive. Is it relevant? Is the goal that you're setting actually, is it going to get you the outcome you want? Is it attainable? If you're going to tell yourself I'm buying a yacht tomorrow, starting from $0 in the bank account, you could do it. People have done other things, but is it really attainable? Good question. Is it measurable? If you give yourself the goal, I want to be happy this year, I need you to reassess that. That is not a measurable goal. How do you measure? Finance is really easy. It's all numbers. It's very good for us to measure. But do something that is measurable. And that also implies being specific. How will I pay $15,000 off by March 31st, 2026? That's a goal. Number 7, it says you can seek nonprofit professional guidance. There's a number of resources out there. The articles I pull up are amazing free information. The internet is a swath of wonderful information. But it's kind of like looking up workout routines. If you YouTube or Google, how do I get fit? It is going to give you so much information, you might have analysis paralysis. So what I would suggest is picking a lane and sticking to it. It doesn't have to be any more right than the other guy. Most of these ways of doing it will get you there. This one says, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your financial situation, you can seek guidance from the American Consumer Credit Counseling, ACCC. There's a little hyperlink that I can click on to look at that. That might be a good free resource for you to look into. What's your thoughts on that? We talked about setting goals, talked about seeking additional income. How do we cut our expenses? How do we prioritize our debt repayments? Creating a budget, and finally assessing the damage. Of those 7 points, which one spoke to you the most? Email me, mendomoneymindset@gmail.com. Let me know what you took away from the finance portion of this show. Last but not least, we're going to be talking about intimacy. All sorts of intimacy, not just that kind of intimacy. We will keep it PG for all the kids in the car, but we're going to be talking about the 6 pillars of what the podcasters One Extraordinary Marriage. This is the term they coined. They wrote a whole book on this. If you haven't heard it, I love audio. You can listen to their podcast. If you love reading, you can pick up the book on Amazon. But what they talk about is, what are the main ingredients? They call them pillars. What are the pillars that make up a good relationship? Now, I'm going to go over them quickly for you, and then we're going to dive into each one. First one is physical intimacy. Second one is spiritual intimacy. Third one, emotional intimacy. Number 4, intellectual intimacy. Number 5, experiential intimacy. And number 6, financial intimacy. All of that is what makes up a good relationship. Now, physical intimacy. We know we can gather, especially if anyone has kids out there. They came into the world. So we get an idea on what physical intimacy is. However, this article specifically, Love Recon, A Better Marriage, goes a little bit more into that. Now, we understand what it is, sexual attraction, all of those things. However, it's a bit more than that. It's touches. It is a way, how can I put this? It's a way to show that you care without using words. So, you're with your significant other. You wake up in the morning, they're washing dishes. Do you go up and hug them? When you're driving down the road and your spouse puts their hand on your lap, do you do an occasional tickle as they're walking by? What forms of physical intimacy are you comfortable with? Do you enjoy? Here's a great opportunity. Here's a great exercise. Have a cup of coffee with your significant other and ask them, how do you like to be touched? Not in the bedroom, but how do you, just like on a day-to-day basis? What do you like? What do you enjoy? What shows you that I care? Boy, I bet you if you ask that question, doors will open on what you might find out. Second is spiritual intimacy. It says connecting through faith. Now, if both of you are faith practitioners, this would be a great time for you guys to focus on, how do you practice that? Do you pray together? Do you go to church together? If you're not in that realm, what do we appreciate? Do we appreciate the universe, the scientific method? How can we show our expression of gratitude towards that? For me, I don't believe that there's a big guy in the sky, but I do believe this world is awesome. And I am constantly in awe by what I see around me. How can I have a conversation with my partner about that? Another coffee date idea, talk about spiritual intimacy. What do you guys believe in? What do you not believe in? They have a study here, which I've seen before, and I do have to actually find the study that did this, so take this with a grain of salt. But they said in marriages where the couples pray together on a daily basis, there is a 1% chance of divorce. While everyone's heard the 50% for first marriages, there's a 78% of divorce, unfortunately, for second marriages. There is only 1% for marriages where they pray together daily. Now, what does that look like? Are they both sitting by the bedside and saying things out loud? I don't know. But that is good to see. Success leaves clues. What a part of this do you think we can take away from that? Maybe volunteering together as an expression of your faith, participating in the community. That's what it says here, service, charitable activities. I think that's a great idea. Maybe what it's really doing is exploring values. Maybe through faith, you guys can articulate the values that you hold close to you. That's a good way to have a conversation. Emotional intimacy, connecting through our feelings. Now, how do we do that? Great question. There was that famous book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, talking about some of the ways that people connect. When I was sitting down with our couples counselor, back in my previous relationship, we went to couples therapy. I suggest anyone do it if you're having a hard time. It's good to have a third person look at the situation that's not in the situation. But one of the things I discovered was facts versus feelings. 9 times out of 10, when I was having an argument with my significant other, I was arguing with facts when really I was just feeling. I was feeling upset, and so I justify it because they said XYZ. And guess what? They would then retort with facts through the lens of them feeling that I was trying to get something, feeling upset with me. And so it was this whole feeling argument covered with the mask of facts. And so what I've learned to do is to say, hey, I'm feeling this way about this situation. I am not right or wrong. I'm not making you right or wrong. I'm simply just stating how I feel. And as a man, that is not the common narrative. So maybe have an exercise. Yeah, I love exercises. I don't want to talk to you and give you all these wonderful, great ideas unless we can actually walk away and do something with them. So, exercise. I guess this exercise, not physically exercise. Emotional intimacy. Practice starting an uncomfortable conversation, if you have to have one, with the statement, I am feeling, and then give your emotional feelings on how you're feeling. You can even give physical sensations. Honey, I'm feeling a little bit tense right now. This is just my tension in my shoulders and my chest. Can you just give me a couple minutes just to breathe? I'm just going to go for a walk. Can you take the kids on for a minute? I tell you what, if I had that conversation, I'd be like, yes, of course. Thank you for telling me. So it says, have open communication. It says, practice active listening. Don't just listen and wait for your response. Listen to actually listen. A great way to do that is the mental dialogue that goes on, at least in my head, is persons talking. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I'm hearing. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to say. I'm already teeing up the response. That's not active listening. So a way to push that voice back in your head would be to ask, tell me more about that. Really? Oh, that's interesting. So what do you mean by that? By asking that single follow-up question, you try to kick that voice in the back of your head that's waiting for that response out, and you get to genuinely listen, and you get the person to talk a little bit more. And most human beings, they love that. You can share personal experience. This one says, lower your walls. Now, what does that mean, Raymond? In this context, they're saying it's okay to be vulnerable. And again, that's where the feelings come in. Can you share your fears, your insecurities? Spend time together and then check in daily. My brother and his partner, they have a wonderful routine or a habit where they do a talk every Monday. So every Monday night, they talk, they sit on the couch, and they go over the week. Generally, they're going over plans, tactics, they're going over, dates. But more importantly, they're going over, hey, honey, this is how I'm feeling this week. Right? Hey, honey, when you said that thing, to my friends about me, I really didn't like that. This is the opportunity we get to say those things, which is amazing. Number one, it gets you to verbalize. It gives you a safe spot that you know you can verbalize these discomforts. Number two, it allows you throughout the week, knowing that you're going to have this conversation on Monday nights, to maybe not have to have the argument. It gives space between the event and the response, which 9 times out of 10 for me means I'm going to be calmer. I'm going to be less emotional. Number four, it says intellectual intimacy, a closeness that develops from understanding one another and sharing your innermost thoughts and feelings. I like to think of this as hanging out with your friend. Intellectual intimacy. Do you guys, you don't have to enjoy the same things, but can you appreciate each other? Can you have banter back and forth? Some of my best friends, I've had some of the best arguments. I have one friend in particular, she has a higher faith, she goes to church every Sunday, and we would hammer it out. There is no God. There is God. Well, what do you mean by this? Well, what does the Bible mean by that? We'd be reading excerpts to each other. I'd be reading Stoicism. She'd be reading the Bible. It's funny how much those guys cross over. Tips for intellectual intimacy. It says shares books or articles, attend workshops and lectures together, and be curious about your partner. Engage in meaningful conversation by asking the questions. How did you come to believe? When did you decide, ... When did you decide that being financially secure is important to you? How did you come to the belief that all people are good or bad? What great questions, huh? That's like a good first date question, too. If you don't have any romantic partners yet, always put that yet in there. That's a great how did you come to form the belief that you always needed to take care of everybody else? You know what's a great thing to do on a first date? Make assumptions. Make assumptions. I say that tongue in cheek. There's the famous negotiator, FBI hostage negotiator, Chris Voss. He has the book Never Split the Difference. He actually has a tactic in there which says make assumative statements. And what's great by that, I'll give an example here in a second. But the reason you do that is because people are really good at correcting you. So when you say, he has a famous example of going up to a flight attendant that's doing like the tickets in the airport. And he says, looks like it's been a rough day, hasn't it? Because she had an angry customer before him. You know what she does? She shakes it off. And she says, you know what? No, it's been a great day. And he says, hey, I'd love to get, is there any additional accommodations here? And she says, for you, we have a couple seats left in first class, but don't tell anybody. And he gets the ticket upgrade. Now, that's a great way to call out an assumative statement. Another way you can do it is, boy, looks like you've just been working all day. Or you could say, hey, I think based on what I'm seeing, you're the kind of person that really is clean. And guess what? If you're wrong, they'll say, no, actually, I really don't care about cleaning all that much. I care more about the experience, yada, yada, yada. People love correcting people. You either guess it right, and they say, yeah, you're right. How'd you know? Or you get it wrong, and they say, no, silly. This is what I actually, and then fill in the blank. Number 5, experiential intimacy. I hear more and more, I am not in a successful relationship yet. On the market, ladies. No, but with that said, I do take notes. And I learn from my past experiences, and I also learn from people a lot smarter than me. How do they have a 40-year relationship that is still vibrant, still intimate? And I think the notes I'm gathering is they do experience life together a lot. They go on shared experiences. Now, there is a ratio, I think. And again, those successful relationships, call in, email, let me know if I'm wrong. But it seems like there's a ratio. There's a percentage. There's a percentage of things you guys do together. road trips, fun experiences, the wine and dine paint idea, that cute couple of ideas, right? So there's that. And then there's also the ratio or proportion of things you do by yourself to keep the newness alive of being in a relationship with a new person. You learn a new skill, you come back, you report back on this new fun hobby, and your significant other gets to say, oh, that's neat, cool. This here says connect through memory making, though. This is the proportion that says, do things together. Plan shared adventures, try new hobbies together, or create traditions. For my son and I, a great parenting hack, create a bunch of games and create traditions, create things between yourselves. We have our secret handshake. We have our games in the morning that we play on our walk to school. We have ninjas. We have red light, green light. We have walking backwards. What else? I think that's about it right now. Yeah, the walking backwards one is new. Red light, green light's always fun. And then ninjas. This is when Dad's tired, and so we walk. We walk slowly. Oh, it's great. But that's it. Tips for enhanced, and then financial intimacy. That's the last one. Is financial intimacy. Go through this radio show together. If you're both in the car right now, you're experiencing financial intimacy. We're going to talk about finances. How does that, bring the conversation up? Have a cup of coffee. Go on a walk. Talk about these things. So to go over them, go over them again. We have the 6 pillars of intimacy. We have physical intimacy, spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy. We have intellectual intimacy, experiential intimacy, and then finally, number 6, financial intimacy. That's it. We talked about how to pay off your debt. We talked about the real estate market for Mendocino County. We talked about the 6 pillars of intimacy. What did you like from today's show? What did you gain? What aha moment? What story do you have? Do you have a real estate story? Do you have a relationship story you'd like to share? Do you have a debt payoff story, a concern? Do you have a question? Email all of those to mendomoneymindset@gmail.com. To finish things up, let's go back to the quote from our good old pal, Abraham Lincoln. I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed, but I am bound to live by the light that I have. I must stand with anybody that lives right, and stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. You are listening to the Mendo Money Mindset Show. I am your humble host, Raymond Habel. You are listening to Willett's Hometown Radio 97.9. Thank you so much, and until next time.